On today's show, we're going to be talking about who will be the key players in New Zealand on the tour. And I thought that we can highlight that. It comes from the comment section yesterday. There were a lot of those discussions about that. And I thought that maybe we can highlight that on today's show. We're also going to talk a little bit about the SA20 game between Pretoria Capitals and Sunrisers Eastern Cape and where that leaves the table when it comes to the standings, because it was quite an interesting match, quite a weird one, I must say as well. But it's going to make the running to the qualifiers very very interesting. So we're going to be discussing all of this on today's show, but obviously the main topic of discussion is going to be the the tour to New Zealand and what's going to be taking place over there and which players I think are going to be important, particularly with the lack of um, experience in the side. But before we get going, before we get started, please subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell for all future videos, particularly if you are new. We really need your help to get to 5,000 subscribers. That is our next milestone. So please go ahead and help us out there by doing so as soon as you can. I'd also like you guys to please subscribe to Cricket Fanatics Magazine Monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. And also, it's time for you to send this link to everybody out there that are entrepreneurs, business owners, or people that are trying to sell products or startups, etc. They must join the business corner so that they can learn more about how to market their business effectively and affordably to a cricket audience. So please send this to anybody that you do know that owns a business, that's an entrepreneur, and that has a startup. I think they will be able to learn a hell of a lot about how to market effectively and affordably in this current digital climate. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. Looking forward to discussing this topic with you guys. A very good evening. Welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host, Khalid, and this is the show where we talk about everything that has to do with SA20 as well as the New Zealand tour that is going to be taking place very, very soon. So let me just get the SA20 talk out of the way. It was a low scoring thriller in this particular match. Something that bothered me though is that Pretoria has always been known over the years for producing great cricket wickets for batting. Being in the high veld, the ball travels quite far, and we've generally had great scoring games at this particular ground. But recently, this hasn't been the case. We can see that in the test matches that have been played there, only lasting 3 days. Um, and we've seen quite a few games over there that have been quite close or quite low scoring at the Pretoria Capitals ground. This wicket is a confusing one because by watching the teams play, what was said at the toss report and what the experts on the day, the commentators and the pundits were saying about the wicket is that it's a good batting wicket. Didn't seem to be the case for Pretoria Capitals, although, yes, a lot of silly shots were played to lose wickets. And it didn't look that way for Sunrisers Eastern Cape either, particularly in the first couple of overs with the new ball. Pretoria Capitals were really hitting the gloves of the opposition batters quite a bit. They were wrapping the gloves quite a bit throughout the match, which is a little bit dangerous in my opinion. And the Sunrisers Eastern Cape really struggled to get out of the starting position or off the starting block. They couldn't find runs and they couldn't find a way to score freely, only chasing a target of 126. It was quite puzzling and weird. But credit goes to the bowlers on the day. I have to say, I think Marco Jansen bowled well for his 3 for 27 with an economy of 7.71, and Simon Armour bowled very well for his 0 for 19 in his 4 overs, economy of 4.75, and Aiden Marklet got 1 wicket for 2, which was good. But 100% the credit, obviously Daniel Waddle as well, but we focus on the South Africans over here. But the credit obviously is going to have to go to, I think, Darren de Pavillon, the way he bowled today. Wayne Parnell, 3 for 33. And Darren de Pavillon for me, 2 for 21. He kept the pressure on the opposition with the new ball as well as at the death. His over at the death was phenomenal. People might question what Liam Dawson was doing at the end, trying to paddle scoop a shot that was going for a wide delivery. Instead of this, going for a cricket shot that was working for him throughout the game. To try something like that with a game on with a game on the line was quite disappointing, in my opinion. But overall, Pretoria Capitals obviously claiming a much needed victory by 3 runs, and it's obviously changed things around a little bit on the table. They now putting pressure on MI Cape Town, who now are pressurized to win the next game. Pretoria Capitals are now on 8. Joburg Super Kings are on 6. So that was a much needed victory by the Pretoria Capitals, and it's now putting pressure on the rest of the log. The Sunrisers Eastern Cape lost the chance to actually go above Durban Super Giants for the time being, with Paul Royals and the Durban Super Giants playing tomorrow. It would have been an important victory if they could have won it with a bonus point as well. They threw that chance away. And I was very disappointed by the game management by Tristan Stubbs today. I don't think that it was necessary for him to have to go at every delivery necessarily. And at the time that he went out, that shot wasn't necessary. He needed to kind of try and bat until the end, because that would have given them their best chance to win. Uh, the top order was really struggling, and Markram giving away his wicket in leading edge in a way that we've seen him lose his wicket quite a bit when he seems to be a little bit out of form. And currently now we can say, after the amount of games that he's played now, I know in one game he didn't bat, and in the other game it was rained out. But in the rest of the games that he's batted so far, hasn't necessarily come to the party quite yet. We know that towards the back end of the tournament last year, he scored that beautiful 100 in the semi-final to take his team to the final, which was a decisive knock and a match-winning knock. So perhaps we might be in for something similar from Aiden Markram to the tournament. Perhaps we're not going to see that consistent run scoring from him that I was hoping to see in this particular tournament so far. So overall, I'm disappointed by the way SEC managed their innings, and it was a disappointing victory if you're a Sunrise Eastern Cape fan. A disappointing loss, sorry, if you're a Sunrise Eastern Cape fan. But if you're a Pretoria Capitals fan, you'll be really happy. Good catch in the crowd as well today. So overall, entertainment was decent. But let's get into the main discussion, and that is, today we're going to be talking about who will be key in New Zealand. Now, many people might say that everybody will be key in New Zealand because considering the situation that we have, where the first team players obviously are playing in the SA20 and won't be available, there are some first timers that are going to be in the squad. And we know that there will be first timers as well in the 11. But because of so much inexperience, especially when your captain is going to be getting a debut in a test, in his first test match, that is quite an interesting situation that we find ourselves in. I don't think, I don't know if anybody, I don't know how many players have ever got, how many captains have ever had a debut as a captain in the history of South African cricket. And it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens with regards to the way he handles the pressure of the match and the whole entire occasion is going to be quite interesting to see how he adapts to the situation. It's new conditions, something that he hasn't really faced before. New Zealand isn't the necessarily a very, it depends what wicket you're going to get there. It can be quite green and the ball can move around, and with the bowlers that they have, it can be quite interesting. But to just see the squad again and remind you guys, Edward Moore was added to the squad. We've got David Bedingham, Clyde Fontaine, wicketkeeper, Zubair Ramza, Keegan Peterson, Rainer van Toorn, Kaya Zondo. In the all-rounders department, we've got Neil Brandt, Ruan de Swart, and Michlali Mapungwana. Then in the spinning department, it's Dane Piet, Sean van Berg, Tsepo Moreke, Dwan Olivier, and Dane Patterson make up the seamers. Now, out of this particular list, Zubair Hamza has Proteas experience, Keegan Peterson has Proteas experience, Kyle Zonda has Proteas experience, Dane Piet has a little bit of Proteas experience, Dwan Olivier and Dane Patterson have a little bit of Proteas experience. So those are the main guys that are going to have to step up and really show what they are capable of and lead the team. They're going to have to lead the team to they're going to have to lead the team in this particular series, because ultimately you are sitting with a situation where you've got quite a bit of youngsters in the side, and you don't want to necessarily have a situation where you're relying only on the guys that are playing in their first test matches or that don't have much experience, and we sit with a situation where all the pressure is going to be on them. We need some of the experienced guys to anchor the innings. That's something that we're gonna need from the side, and we're going to need them to come together and trust each other as a unit. But this particular series is going to be very much dependable on individual experience, individual performances. With this particular squad, and I've updated it because I saw there was a spelling mistake. With this particular squad, you KP and Zubair Hamza, for me, are the ones that gonna have to really play important knocks within the team. They're going to have to be kind of the leaders in the team, because Zubair Hamza has already played in New Zealand, so he kind of has an understanding of the conditions. And Keegan Peterson is the type of guy that I feel is someone that has had quite a bit of pressure on him recently, particularly because of his spot kind of being up for grabs, I would say. Like, he's been moved from number 3, right? So that does change things a bit for him. And it will affect him to an extent, because he's played, I mean, he's played 21 innings, uh, 12 matches in total, and averaged 28, and he's got that 450s under his belt. So he's had quite a bit of experience for South Africa. Compared to the rest of the team, definitely has more experience than the rest of the team. So, but what's going to be interesting is how they're going to face the in New Zealand conditions. I think Zubair Hamza is the only player that has played, I think, in New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken. So that does make an interesting case for it does make an interesting case and scenario for the players, because we're now going to be sitting with a situation where there are quite a few guys that are new, and we know that. But I think that Keegan Peterson needs to step up, particularly with his experience that he has. And he needs to show his seniority from a domestic perspective. He's obviously had quite a few domestic matches. He's one of the most experienced domestic cricketers and batters in the side. And they have to kind of keep hold together, or keep the team together in a way. And I know they bat lower down the order. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Neil Brandt if he opens the batting. And there's going to be have to be decisions made whether Eddie Moore has now been picked in the squad if he comes straight in as the designated opener. Reiner van Tonde for me is the number 3, but it will make it very interesting to see how they're going to shuffle things around to fit everybody in, because Keegan and Zubair, in my opinion, need to play. So does David Bedingham, who is a first choice test player currently. So those 3 take up 3 spots in the side. The question is going to be between Reinhardt and Neil Brandt, and whether we're going to play with 7 batters or not. Those are questions that we are going to have to answer, because we know Clive Fontaine is the wicket keeper, so he plays. A brave decision could be for them to allow David Bedingham to keep. If they do so, then Clive Fontaine doesn't necessarily have to play, and then you can fit everybody in. Reinhardt, Keegan, all of them in. We still got Kayo Zondo as well there that is available for selection. That's also going to cause some decisions that have to be made. But the no-brainer picks is obviously the captain, Neil Brandt, who will open the batting. And then obviously you've got David Bedingham that must be picked, KP and Zubair Hamza, who have test experience. So those 4, your top 4 is already picked. So almost your top 4-5 is already picked. So the question is Eddie Moore or Reiner van Tonde, where they come in. And then obviously your number 6 batter whether we're going to go with 7 batters or 6. So I'm interested to know what you guys think about that. Whether you guys feel that we should go with 7 batters in this particular tour. This is obviously going to be wicket dependent. So it's very difficult for me to sit here and ask you guys 4 in 11 right now, not having known what the wicket is going to be like. So that's going to be the discussions leading up to the test match. We're obviously going to do previews of the test match on this channel, and we will discuss the weather conditions and the pitch, etc. further. But because there is such a talented squad and so many batters available, I think Coach Shukri's hardest job is going to be to select the top 6. Marwan says B wants Brandt van Tonde to open, KP to bat 3, Hamza to bat 4, Bedingham to bat 5, Zondo to bat 6, Clyde to bat 7, De Swart, Olivier, Patterson, and Moreki. That's his team. So he's going with the 7 batters. We must also remember, considering the wicket, that Neil Brandt can also spin and add some overs. So that does give us some versatility and allows us to maybe bat with an extra all-rounder or an extra batter, because he can add some overs if the wicket is spinning a bit. So you can have Dane Pitt and you can have Neil Brandt, because he spins he's opening the batting, so it opens up a spot for another batter or another all-rounder. So that is also an option that we can look at. But for me personally, when I'm looking at the squad and I'm looking at the situation, I think KP and Hamza are going to be key players. When it comes to from a batting perspective, because yes, there's going to be pressure on Bedingham as well because he's now made his test debut. But I think there's a little bit more leniency for someone like David Bedingham. He's only played 2 tests for South Africa. He's new in his international career. So I think there'll be a little bit leeway from the fans at least with regards to Bedingham. I think there'll be a little bit of leeway for Brandt and Van Tonder if Van Tonder plays or Eddie Moore. But I think for KP and Hamza, yes, they might not have played a lot of test cricket or they might not have been in the setup for long periods, but they have, I think, enough experience to be able to go out there, trust their game, and play good innings. So I'm backing them to be key players for the New Zealand tour. Marwan says in New Zealand, you don't get much spin. Has to be 4 seamers, Brandt and Zondo to be used to spin, and we will bat deep with the SWAT at 8. It depends on the conditions. I know generally speaking, if they produce green tops, it's obviously going to move around and swing a bit. And I think that's going to be a big problem for some of our newer batters who have never faced international swing bowling before. So that is a whole different level than domestic cricket. So at least in the SAA games against India and the West Indies, they did get a little bit of action from, I would say, international quality uh, bowling performances against the units. So they did get to face some world class bowlers and the way they can and bowling attacks and skill levels that are a little bit different to what we used to here in South Africa. So I'm hoping that the players that I mentioned so far, that they are at the top of their game. I think that there's an incentive for them. For me, there's still 1 or 2 spots in the national side that are up for grabs. We don't know what's going to happen with the opening position now that Dean Alga has retired. Could Tony De Zorzi move into his natural position as an opener in the side? And then that will open up an opportunity for someone at number 3 or number 4. We got Temba Bavuma at 4, so that maybe will open an opportunity at 3 for someone else to come in there. So I think Zubair Hamza, KP, they've got a big task on their hands and they've got incentive now to put up their hands for the test series. We heard Zubair Hamza speak in his press conference that it's not only about personal performances, etc. But still, to me, I think that he needs to take that opportunity that he's getting. And he needs to see it as an opportunity for him to make it into the side. And I don't put too much pressure on himself because it is about the team and it is about playing the best cricket that he can possibly play. But I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's thinking about, this is a chance for me to actually put up my hand for maybe Proteas selection again when the first 11 gets picked for the next test series. I think KP will have that maybe in his mind as well. Although recently he's been competing for that number 5 slot where David Bedingham is currently batting. And we know that Temba Bavuma is the number 4 batter in the side. So that is something to think about. Perhaps Clyde Fontaine as well, because Coach Shukri hasn't necessarily been completely fixed on a keeper. He's had Andy Klaasen, now he's tried Calvarena. Could Clyde Fontaine put up his hand as a keeper batter? Perhaps. We don't know if the what would have happened if the SA20 didn't happen in this period. Would Ryan Rickleton get another go, or would he go again with Calvarena? I think he would have probably given Calvarena another shot. I think Calvarena has deserved another opportunity. Despite his performances against India, I still think he deserves another opportunity to perform. Marwan says KP and Hamza need to take their opportunities, especially Hamza. He's too good at domestic level. He needs to force the selectors' hand by performing in the series. And especially with the fact that he's played in New Zealand already, he's familiar with the conditions there. He might not have had the best of performances in the match, but at least he knows now what to expect. New Zealand are going to be a very competitive side. We know that they're a world class unit. It's by no means going to be easy. And like I said on previous shows, what I would like to see is a fight from our team. I want them to put in the best performance that they possibly can, and I want them not to roll over, of course. And in order to do so, I think particularly with the batters, I think we need our batters to step up. I think the batters are going to be the most important part of the series. I think our bowlers will be relatively okay. With bowling, in my opinion, as you get more experience, you find control a lot easier, and you can be more consistent more often. And I think that's what we have over here. We've got guys like Dane Patterson who can swing the ball. He's have had county experience now. He's played for the Proteas, so he's very experienced and he understands his bowling technique and his rhythms very well. So does Dane Pitt. So does Dwan Olivier. So it's a very experienced bowling attack. So there shouldn't be too many excuses for the bowlers. They should be hitting their straps and hitting their lines and lengths. And that's all we expect from them, is to be able to assess the conditions and bowl according to what is on display. I expect these bowlers, with the experience that they have, to be able to put the ball where they want to put it. And if they can put it in the good areas, in the decent areas on the wicket, to trouble New Zealand, dependable on the way the wicket is, then we will know. We will definitely know that we can put up a fight with the ball and make it very difficult for New Zealand. It's the batters that I feel are going to have the most amount of pressure on them, because it's going to be about their form, how they're seeing the ball, and whether they can cope with the pressure that New Zealand's going to pile on them. Marwan says, Khalid, are you concerned that we don't have any young talented spinners to take over from Maharaj one day? I think Bjorn Fortuin is someone that can come in and replace Maharaj. I think Bjorn has proven himself season after season that he has the fighting spirit and ability. I do think, however, that he needs to learn a little bit from Keshav Maharaj. Keshav has managed, what Keshav does very beautifully is he manages his lines and his lengths very well. He's a very smart spinner. And I think that's something that maybe Bjorn can add to his game a little bit more, is maybe variants and variations of lines and lengths, and with his speeds as well. I know he does currently use some variations with speed, and he's starting to improve that ability to be able to manipulate the ball and put it where he wants to, and pile pressure onto the opposition batters. But I think Bjorn Fortuin is someone that we need to look out for, and I think that he's someone that could possibly replace Keshav down the line in the near future. Um, we have yet to see. I know he's not a left arm spinner, um, so you can't really put him into the bracket of Keshav Maharaj. But Prillan Zubrayan is a player. I know he's a right arm off breaker, but he's a spinner that hasn't really necessarily gotten a chance to play for South Africa yet, and he's been doing quite well for the Durban for Knights. So that is something that we need to look at. You're right, though, Marwan, that from a younger player's perspective, from a youth level perspective, there aren't many spinners in that 20, 21, 22, 23 maybe bracket. The spinners that are performing at domestic level are all in the early 20s, I'm sorry, late 20s, hitting 30s. So the spinners that we're going to bring in are going to be experienced guys, domestic experienced guys. Those are the ones that are putting up their hands, and those are the only ones that we can probably select from. So it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen in the spinning department. It doesn't help that our school wickets are not really conducive to spin. So generally speaking, our kids aren't necessarily coming in through the system and saying, "I want to be a spinner." Uh, it's a little bit of an issue. And particularly wrist spinners as well are very hard to come by. So that's the next thing that we need. We're going to need some players to step up and perform, or we need to find some way to develop spinners in the country. It's going to be very difficult to do so, given that we don't have the conditions in South Africa to do so. Marwan says, what happened to Junaid Dawood? He signed with the Lions. So, and he's getting no game time there. So, I don't know what's going to be happening with him. He's 27. So, he's had, he has only played 25 first class matches, 28 list A games, and 17 T20s. So, he played for the emerging side in October 2023 against the Knights, and SA emerging side against Limpopo, and the emerging side versus Southwestern Districts. And he did quite well in that particular stint that the SA emerging had within the List A format. He took 4 for 27, 4 for 16 that particular Division 2 tournament. But other than that, he hasn't really had much game time. And he's now signed with the Lions. And his last match for the Lions was a T20 match. You know, no, wait, I'm talking nonsense. He hasn't played for the Lions yet. Let me give it to you that straight up. So that's a problem. And I mean, I think he's at the Lions. That's what I've heard recently. It doesn't show that on Click Info, but I think he has signed with the Lions. Let me just see. I think he has signed with the Lions. Yeah, he's at Lions Cricket. So yeah, it's a problem because he's not getting any game time. Would you say Simmons from Western? Simmons is another good option. He's been playing quite well recently, so he's another player that could that has been putting up his hand for future selections. But in general, when you look at the 4-day competition and you look at the players that have been performing there aren't many spinners that have really performed. Last season, when Durban's wicket was spinning like crazy, it was Sir Brian that put up his hand and performed. So that's an off spinner. So yeah, it's a very stressful time period for South African cricket when it comes to certain major key positions in the test squad. And what makes it even more concerning is that we don't have enough test matches to be able to blood in new talent. So yeah, it's complicated at the moment. It is frustrating at the moment. It's already frustrating for me as a fan, the fact that we're not sending a first team to New Zealand, our first 11, our strongest 11 to New Zealand. But I do have faith in these guys to put on some performances, that they have what it takes, because I would say personally that someone like KP is definitely should be fighting for a space in the first 11. David Beddingham's already in the first 11, and I think Zubair Hamza should be fighting for a place there too. Reinhard van Tonda, I think, is a fringe player that's on the brink. I think another good season from him for Northwest, and he could be knocking down that door. The only concerns that really I have is it's very difficult to open the batting in Test cricket, so I have a concern over a new fresh opening pair with no Test experience whatsoever, which we're most likely going to see. That's the only concern for me, because that opening position, given a good start, is so vital to any Test match. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the two openers, because the two openers are going to be debutants regardless of who we pick. So those are the things that I wanted to cover on today's show. I think those players are going to be the key that I mentioned. And I think it's going to be exciting, though, to be able to see some of these newer guys. There's some players that have been selected over here that I've been waiting to see what they can do at the international level for some time now. I've been itching to see them in the future make their debuts for South Africa. I didn't think it would come so soon. I, th- I think Eddie Moore's one is I think he was in contention already for that England tour where Peter Malan made his debut. I thought that Eddie Moore could have possibly been in the mix back then already. But in this particular occasion, we now get to see him. Hopefully, we get to see him play. And we can really start seeing how good our domestic system and our players are. And particularly how these players' mentalities, how strong their mentalities are. If we come through this particular series having fought well, had some good performances from certain players, I think it says a lot about their character. And I think it will say a lot about their mentality too. So let's keep a close eye on this particular series. It's going to be very important. We'll be covering it very closely. To the guys that don't know, I said already that we will be doing our review shows directly after the day's play in the mornings, South African Standard Time. And we'll be doing a preview before the test series. So it's not a preview for every day. It's a preview before the test series and then reviews every day. On the review shows, we'll be talking about what happened in the match and what we expect on the next day. So please be aware that we will be going live in the mornings. So please put on your notification bell so that you can get notified on when we go live. It's going to be a very tough series for me personally as well, because it's late nights, so it's midnight right through until 8 o'clock in the morning, and then it's SA20 games the afternoon, evening, or the evenings. So these are going to be quite tricky for me. So just be patient with me, etc., and try and support me as best as possible, guys. That's all I can ask from you guys. Very positive about our batting lineup. Very exciting. I'm more concerned about our bowlers. I'm actually less concerned about our bowlers because they experience, they should know how to put the ball where they want it now, consistently, with the experience that they have playing county cricket, playing domestic cricket, some of them playing for South Africa already. They should have the ability to be able to put the ball where they want it and to be able to utilize the conditions and get the best out of the conditions. But guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. I'm really tired tonight and it's Paul tomorrow, so I'm going to get some rest. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So, because I'm going to Paul tomorrow, there won't be a daily show because I will be doing a lot of behind the scenes type, trying to do a lot of behind the scenes type content with fans, etc., to try and post up on the channel. I'll maybe do like a longer form video from the ground with maybe some journalists or some people that I find at the ground, so that we can discuss maybe a specific cricket topic, and then I'll upload that to the channel. I won't be able to go live from Bonan Park. I've heard that the Wi-Fi isn't as stable for me to do so at any of the stadiums ultimately. So I have to normally come home for that, and it's going to take me about 45 minutes to get back from Bonan Park all the way home. So I'll only get home around about 10, 11. So it's going to be quite a late night for me tomorrow night. So I won't be able to do a show tomorrow. But thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for all the uploads that we will be posting. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Peace out.